Artists are some of the most resourceful people out there just for the fact that they can create something from virtually nothing. Whether that's a piece of toast, money, or even actual human blood. Don't look at me, Google. I had to look this up because of reasons. I'm trying to prove a point. I'm not some crazy murderer or anything. My point is that if an artist has a vision, they will stop at nothing to achieve it, and that means using any materials that they have. If you're just starting out on your art journey, you likely don't want to spend a lot of money or actual real blood to make a painting or a drawing. Hello, Ayasuna here, and I make videos, more specifically art videos. And while it's technically possible to create art out of literally any material that exists, I'm sure that most beginners don't want to do that. Whether you're new to art or just simply trying a different medium, you don't want to spend a fortune to have supplies that don't work as intended. Obviously that leads to frustration, and nobody likes wasting time or money these days. So basically the ground rules of my tier list are how affordable the product is, pros and cons of using said product, and how accessible they are to most consumers. And let's also be frank here, not all art supplies are created equally. And with so many options out there now, it's hard to tell whether or not you're getting a good deal, so hopefully this video will help you out. Also, I'm from the land of freedom, brother, so when I talk about money, I'm mainly referring to USD. Also, before we get started here, I want to remind you that you don't need super expensive supplies to make good artwork. For a while I used the cheapest of the cheap because I didn't exactly have money for good supplies. I only recently started trying more things when it came to my art, so I don't want you to feel bad if you don't have the most expensive paints or whatever. You can still make great art. Don't let anyone bully you into thinking otherwise. Okay, now moving on. So first off on this list we have the Apple Barrel Acrylic Craft Paint, and they're like the Arizona tea of paints and art supplies. What I mean by that is that they're roughly $1 per bottle, and they come in many different colors. I've seen some prices as cheap as 58 cents per bottle at Walmart, as well as other craft retailers. With Apple Barrel paints, I usually get the results I want within a coat, maybe 2 coats depending on what I'm doing. But like I said, that they are pretty reliable as well as super cheap. Not only do they come in plenty of colors, they also come in different finishes. I happen to own several of these satin finish versions, and they look just as gorgeous as the more expensive brands. So for that reason, I'm gonna put these paints in Goated. Apologies on that one, folks. This is the first time I'm recording with my new VTuber model, and my computer is currently freaking out. So if there's a delay from me making my judgment and that appearing on this tier list, that is the reason why. My computer is sort of old. I'm overdue for upgrades, and hopefully I will get them soon. So please bear with me. Thank you for the support though. Next up on our list we have Arteza, a brand that seemingly popped out of nowhere just one random day. While I haven't really used their paints or markers, I am a huge fan of their sketchbooks and canvas panels. I haven't really been able to always get out, especially when COVID was around, so I tended to buy their canvas panels in bulk to keep me from having to go out to the craft store. Third on our list are the Bic pens, specifically the Bic crystals. While these are seen more as office supplies, they are readily available, and I actually really do like sketching with these. However, if you do prefer alcohol markers, then these pens aren't exactly the best option. They will smudge no matter how long you wait for them to dry. So in that case, you might want to do your line art after you do your coloring. But despite that, these are cheap, and like I said, every store carries these, so I'm gonna rate these as great value as well. Next up we have the Canson XL Mixed Media Sketchbook. This is a classic in the art community. If you've been following traditional artists, you've likely seen this sketchbook at least once already. And for good reason. The paper is reasonably thick and it has a medium texture, making it good for both wet and dry mediums. While I personally am not the biggest fan of how this sketchbook handles watercolor, I do think alcohol markers and gouache work quite nicely on this paper. I will say that even though a lot of retailers do carry these sketchbooks, I do find that the price varies slightly between where you get them from. I don't really see paying $15 for this paper. If it's not on sale, I likely wouldn't buy this sketchbook. I think there are better options depending on what mediums you use. I will say if you get them in a buy one get one free deal or a massive discount, I actually do think that they're quite worth it, especially if you're just starting out as an artist and you aren't sure what mediums you like. So all in all, I'll put these in average. Oh boy, it looks like Copic markers are next on the list, and I sort of have a hot take that might lead me into trouble, at least in the traditional art world. I think Copic markers are overrated. Why are you booing at me? You know I'm right. I mean, back in the day, you could make the case that alcohol markers just weren't as popular in the West, or anywhere outside of Japan. And outside of Winsor & Newton Pro markers and Sharpies, there weren't really many options for artists that did want to achieve that look. But in the past 5 or so years, there are so many viable options compared to Copic that come at a much cheaper price range, so much so that it's hard to justify buying Copic markers. I mean, alcohol markers in general aren't even light fast, so you aren't even getting a better color quality that wouldn't fade in the same time as cheaper markers. But there's another brand down the list that I will talk about this a bit more. From pricey to cheap, we have the Crayola colored pencils. And I'm going to put these in the goated category. Why, you might ask? I have used these for all of my artistic life, and I don't hesitate to snatch a pack of these up whenever they're on sale. While I don't think they're artistic quality, of course, I do think that they are a really good way to start if you want to learn how to use colored pencils. While I don't have the time or energy to do full-scale colored pencil drawings anymore, I still frequently sketch with these because of the harder leads. So all in all, even though they're not quote-unquote adult art supplies, I still really enjoy them, and for that they're going to the goated tier. Sticking with Crayola here, we have the washable watercolor paints, again by Crayola. And again, these aren't artist-grade supplies, but another hot take, I do think these are actually kind of fun to work with. Like the colored pencils, these are readily available at pretty much any store, and of course they're really cheap. I've seen them go as cheap as $2.50 at my local Walmart. Except for the cheap brush that they include in those sets. Seriously, what can you really do with those? Even master artists would get frustrated with those. I genuinely think that these are a bit of a step up from those cheap watercolors you get in those children's art sets. So again, if you are dealing with a younger artist, I think these are one of the 2 options that are good at this price range. But again, there's another viable option that I will get into later. So for now, I'll put these in the average tier. So from Crayola, we go all the way up to Daniel Smith watercolors, which of course are another staple in the art community. Hands down, these are goated, and I don't think anyone would really disagree with this take. I mean, after all, I loved every single color that I swatched from the dot card that I bought. The granulation is something that I really enjoy about these watercolors, even though that's not everyone's forte. I'm pretty sure that Daniel Smith comes in over 300 colors, and of course, while it'd be nice to have them all, you definitely don't need them all to get started. The split primary set is more than enough. Next on our list is the Fudenosuke Tombow brush pens, a pack of 2 to be more precise. And again, I gotta put these in the goated category. While these pens aren't waterproof, I still really enjoy using them to do my line art. Let me explain. Compared to a lot of other water-based pens out there, the ink actually stays quite dark even after drying, which is something that is hard for me to find. I also find that the brush pens last for quite a long time. I bought my first set around 2 years ago, and they are still going on quite strong, even though I use them quite a lot. So all in all, if you're looking for something to do your line art with at a reasonable price, then these are a pretty good option. Next up are the viral sensation of Mihimi/Mia gouache. I didn't exactly differentiate the brands here, because as far as I know, they are the same thing. I wasn't really impressed with the student grade gouaches out there. For beginners that are learning gouache, I think it's kind of hard to find a decent set of paints at a reasonable price. I think the Himi/Mia brand are a decent start for younger artists. That said, the packaging isn't exactly the most traveler friendly. The upkeep of these paints almost feels like a houseplant. You constantly have to keep them wet, otherwise they will dry quite quickly if you don't use them. I quickly found out that this was a problem for me because I don't consistently use gouache. I've also heard rumors that this paint can actually turn moldy, which is kind of surprising. You don't really want to start your artwork just to find out that your paints have mold on them. I think if you're constantly going to be using gouache, that these aren't a bad option. Though if you're like me and you're irregular with the medium, I think you might want to steer clear here. I was going to put these in average, but I think I'm going to bump them down to could be better. Speaking of a more expensive option to Himi gouache, we have the Holbein Artist Gouache, specifically the 12 set since that's the set that I own. If anything, I kind of wish I used these paints a bit more. From when I did use them and swatched them out, I found the consistency to be very smooth, and the colors were super vibrant. I know gouache has a reputation to being a bit dull compared to normal watercolors, so that was a really nice touch. For that reason, because I haven't used them that much, I'm going to put them in great value. Next up are the Ohuhu markers, both the brush tip and the normal bullet tip. Okay, glaze session incoming, but I really do enjoy these markers. I'm gonna put them in the goated tier, not just because of the brand and them being cheaper than Copics, but they really are a great alternative. In fact, they're one of the first alternatives to Copic markers. Not only do they come with brush tips, as I said, but they recently came out with their own refills. This brand has sets for pastels, skin tones, blue tones, and even gray tones. And they're coming out with even more colors almost every day. Well, not literally every day, but you know they frequently update their website with new supplies. And I'm thinking about getting another pack of these really soon. They are one of many great Copic alternatives and are a much more affordable price point. They're even coming out with their own version of Copic Chows, which are a cheaper alternative to their own normal markers. Okay, Ohuhu glazing session over. Next are the PH Martin India inks. I only own the black one, but they do come in many other colors. I tend to do more inking around Inktober, of course, but I haven't been disappointed with these inks. They last a very long time. I've had my bottle for around 2 to 3 years at this point. And yeah, they're usually around $10 per bottle, depending on your retailer, but again, they are available in most craft stores. Next, we have the Prang watercolors, which are another classic for younger artists. They run a few dollars pricier than the Crayola watercolors, at least at my local stores, but they are still quite a budget-friendly option. If you are trying to learn a bit more about watercolors, I think these are a solid choice. Gonna put these in great value as well. I've only used them for a few times, and each time I was actually quite impressed with how vibrant these are. Here we have the Speedball India inks, and I'm sorta not impressed by these, despite the good reviews that I've seen. I don't know if it was the particular bottle that I had, but these always felt a bit gritty to use, like the inks weren't, I guess, mixed properly or something. It constantly caused my dip pens to become all gunky and hard to clean. I haven't had that issue with the PH Martin inks, so again, maybe I just got a bad bottle or something. But I'm still gonna put these in average. They are pretty cheap and good if you want to get into inking. Here we have my beloved Shinhan Professional Watercolors, and these are gonna be a bit of a fan favorite of mine because these were my first quote-unquote big girl watercolors. These were my first set that weren't from the dollar store, and I still have a deep appreciation for them. I still use them quite a bit when I plan my sketches. I've also had these for around 4 or 5 years at this point, but when I compare them to other brands, I don't think the value for them is there, at least as they were a few years ago. I got the set of 24 and I only paid around $18 for it about 4 years ago. But when I look on Amazon now, these paints are around $30. I think when you consider the price for these, I think it's better to spend a few extra dollars if you're going to pay $30 anyways to get the introductory set for Daniel Smith. The quality is much better, So while I still like using these paints, I'm gonna put them in the could be better. I think they're a bit overpriced compared to more expensive brands. Next are the Sharpies, which are also an office classic. For a while, these were the quote-unquote alternative to Copic markers, and they aren't exactly alcohol markers from my understanding. I'm pretty sure these are oil-based markers which work differently. I'm gonna put these in the could be better pile because again, there are many more options for alcohol markers, and for whatever reason, Sharpies always made me feel sick, and I didn't exactly like to use them. So yeah, there are better options. As a quick aside here, a lot of these supplies that are in this list are also available at my Amazon shop. I am an Amazon influencer, so I do earn commission if you purchase things from my shop. I'll have the link down below in the description, along with my socials if you're interested. But like I said, there's never any pressure to buy anything, so if you do want to support me, a like and subscribe would be just enough. We're near the end of the list here, so let's just power through these last few choices I have here. So here we have both Huion as well as Wacom, both of which are pretty important for digital artists. I sort of feel like this is like the Apple versus Android debate, but for digital art. While I've briefly tried Wacom tablets, I still have my own Huion tablet that I use pretty much all the time. Huion is a bit cheaper than Wacom, and I feel like their customer support anyways, is quite responsive to any concerns that I have. Also, I'm still not forgetting the time when Wacom actually used AI art to promote their product, which just kinda goes against what they stand for if they want to support actual artists. So for that reason, I'm gonna put Wacom in overrated, and I'm gonna put Huion in good value. Now it's kinda hard to put value towards Krita and Medibang Paint as both applications are free. Photoshop you do technically have to pay for a subscription. I mean, I would totally never download a car, so I'm obviously paying for my subscription. Wink wink nudge nudge. But seriously, Photoshop has had a lot of problems recently regarding how they treat artists and their content. They want to scrape their users' data to feed their AI, which obviously a lot of artists and graphic designers weren't too happy with. Speaking of the software itself, I actually prefer Krita above Photoshop and Medibang Paint. I find the software to be more streamlined, but unfortunately it crashes my computer for some reason whenever I try to stream it or record it with OBS for some reason. That said, it's free, so if you have a semi-powerful computer, I don't see the downside of downloading it here. So I'm gonna put that in goated. I'm gonna put Photoshop in overrated. Unless you're in a professional setting, you don't really need to pay for the subscription. Medibang, I think it's also a good option if you don't actually have a computer. You can install it on Android as well as iOS, I think. So again, that's still a decent option. We are down to the last 6 options in my tier list, and I actually got rid of a row. I didn't use Just Bad, so there's really no point of it being there. But regardless, next we have the Sakura Micron pens. I'm gonna be real, I also think that these are overrated. I think they're overpriced. The inks constantly dry from them, even from pens that I recently bought. And yeah, I'm not really impressed with their quality anymore. It almost feels like their pens feel cheaper and smaller, they just don't hold as much ink anymore. There are plenty of other fine liners that are cheaper that can give you the same results, if not better in my opinion. Next are the Prismacolor color pencils. I'm going to refer to their original color pencils, although I like their color erase pencils quite a lot. Again, I'd say they're pretty goated, although recently their quality has gone down a bit. Now, I myself haven't really had problems with their pencils, but I haven't really bought a new set in a while either. So for now, I'm going to put these in great value. Just be careful because I've heard some less than stellar stories about them. Here we have the Strathmore Tone Tan paper, and again, I actually really like this paper. I'm going to put it in goated. These are around a similar price range as Canson sketchbooks, but they are frequently on sale, so I would say that if you do get them on sale, I would buy a few of them because they're always good to have. Good if you want to work with pencils and markers, and it really makes the color pop. Next up we have rose art, which I'm pretty sure no one actually likes. I get it that they're cheap and most stores do carry them, but if you have the few dollars to spare, please get Crayola. You'll have a better time, trust me. Next are the Sakura Jelly Roll pens, which again I think are a bit overrated. I tried these pens and I actually really do want to like them, but no matter how old or new the pens were, I just couldn't get them to work for me. The ink would just clog in the pen and I couldn't get a lot of the ink out, and I felt like I just wasted $3 or $4. Last and certainly not least, we have the Winsor Newton Cotman watercolors. I mean, for someone trying to take watercolors a bit more seriously, I actually don't think these are a horrible option, especially if you can snag them on sale. I actually would put these a tier higher than my Shinhan professional watercolors because they do run a few dollars cheaper. That said, if you do pay full price, I also think it's a bit better to just wait and save for the Daniel Smith watercolors. I've only tried the Cotman tubes. I don't know how the Cotman pan sets are, so again, apologies for the incomplete, report, but I'm gonna put these in average. Well, this is my finished art supply tier list, and I think I kept it pretty fair. I didn't just want to put the most expensive supplies in goated just because of their price range. I wanted to think of something that could be good at any skill level, whether you're just coming back to art or if you're just trying it for the very first time. Like I said, you do not need expensive supplies to make great art, and no one should really be telling you that otherwise. I think if and when I try more supplies, I might actually make a updated tier list. But until now, I hope you had fun with this video, and take care. More is coming in the future, so please stay tuned. Oh, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Toodles!